This is problem 1 on the review sheet. It says, in 2014, the population of the town was 21,385. In 2015, the population increased to 23,463. Find the percent increase in the population. Now, before I do any calculations, I like to just get an estimate of the answer, just so that after I do my calculations, I know if I'm on the right path. So we're starting at around 21,000, and we're going up to about 23,000, right? I'm just rounding, right? From 21,000 to 23,000. What's the percent increase? So when I think to myself, well, it went up about 2,000, right? And it started at 21,000, and it's going up about 2,000. So that's about 10% of it, right? Right? If it would have been 20,000, right? It's kind of right, if I take 20,000, I divide by 10, I get 2,000. So about 10%, right? Or even, right, 10% of 21,000 is 210. So it's going up even about 210, right? It's really somewhere right around that 10% increase. Right? And just to get a sense, right, it's not a 100% increase, right? What would a 100% increase be? That would be doubling, right? You'd be increasing by that same amount. Okay, so it's not that close to a 100% increase, right? A 0% increase would be staying the same. So just on that, that from that range, from a 0% increase to a 100% increase, right, we're at about a 10% increase, right? Just to kind of just estimate. Okay, so now let's do some actual calculations. There's two ways to approach this. The one that's a little bit more conceptual, but it takes a few more steps, is to kind of mirror what we were doing with our estimate. So with our estimate, before we calculated a percentage increase, we actually looked at what the actual increase was. And we estimated that it was about a 2,000 person increase, but let's actually check what that is. So the actual increase is, you can do that by 23,463 minus 21,385. So when I subtract, and I can put this in my calculator, I'm getting 2,078. Okay, so this is the actual increase. Right, not the percent increase, but the actual amount of increase. But we're not interested in the actual amount of increase. What we're interested in is the percent increase. So now we need to think to ourselves, okay, so this increase of 2,078, how do I think of this as a percent? Well, whenever you're doing a percent, right, a percent increase or a percent decrease, it's always a percent of the original. So we're starting here, this is the original, and this is the final number. When we're taking a percent, it's always a percent of the original. So what we're saying is 2,078 is what percent of 21,385. And the way that we can do that is just by dividing. Taking this 2,078 over 21,385. If you prefer to kind of write it as an equation, just as an aside, I'll kind of put it up here. Right, when I said 2,078 is what percent of 21,385, you can actually write it as like 2,078 is what percent or what fraction or what proportion, right? What of 21,385. So if I do it like this, it's not going to come out as a percent, it's going to come out as a decimal, but I can change it to, also, I mean, either way, this is going to come out as a decimal, not a percent. Okay, but again, if I solve for x here, I'm just dividing by 21,385 to figure out, what percent of it is. Okay, so putting this into my calculator, so 2,078 divided by 21,385, what I'm getting is 0.097, I'll end at 2, 0.0972. So that's putting it as a decimal, right? But we want to have our final answer as a percent. So what we're going to do to change this from a decimal to a percent is we're going to move the decimal place over 2 units. So 1, 2. And so what we're going to be left with is 9.72%. Okay, so as our estimate was that it was about a 10% increase, so 9.72%, right, this makes sense. This is pretty close to our estimate. So this is the way to approach it more conceptually. There is a little bit of a shortcut, but it's a little bit harder to see conceptually why that's true. The shortcut is I can actually just put into my calculator 23,463 divided by 21,385. And what I'm going to get is 0972. So what this is telling us is that the 23,463 is kind of 100% of the original amount. That's where that 1 is coming from, right? 100% of the original amount, plus an additional 0.092 of the original amount. So if you do it like this, you're going to end up with 1 point something. You then have to kind of subtract off that original 100%, because we're not looking at, what percent of the original, we're just interested in the percent increase. So we would end up with a 0.0972, just like we had before, and then changing that to a decimal just like before, we would still get 9.72%. So it's a little bit of a shortcut because it's just one thing into your calculator instead of two, I think, or even three. But it's a little bit, harder conceptually to kind of make sure that you're kind of subtracting off the 1 or kind of making sure that you have all the right steps. So whichever method kind of works for you, but definitely at the end, go back, check your work, make sure your answer makes sense. To check your work, you'd actually take, 9.72% of 21,385 and make sure that you get to 23,463. So even if you use this method, you're still going to look at that 9.72% of 21,385 to get that 2078 increase. Okay, so that's problem 1.